Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin. Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, serial tech entrepreneur. I have 30 companies under my belt. 20 of those failed. 10 of those were big successes. And that roller coaster of a ride is talked about in my book called Fail Hard, Win Big. It's how I learned how to use failure as a tool to propel you and to learn from, and how you have a choice when something fails. You could let it bug you and bother you, or you can use it as a superpower to learn moving forward. Common theme of all my ventures has been always about building custom software for internal operating systems, unique client experiences, and raise enterprise value. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We're a high-impact software development firm headquartered in the U.S. with resources in both U.S. and Latin America, helping other companies grow their software teams. Today, I am joined by Evan Steele, CEO of Rater8. This is going to be a fun one. Evan's been a multi-time founder. He's had some great experience in healthcare and tech, and has got a pretty cool solution that his company does. Evan, welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me today.
You bet. If you would, Evan, walk our listeners through the journey of your career and what led you to found Rater8.
So my career is basically three segments. There was investment banking, healthcare management, and then healthcare software.
All right.
So I graduated business school, ended up working on Wall Street. This is in the early 90s. Always wanted to be a banker, great with numbers, majored in finance, undergrad and grad school, but just didn't like the investment banking field. It was kind of brutal, actually. You're just working with a bunch of people who are either divorced, unhappy, single, and I just had a wife and a baby, so I said, this is not for me. So I left, went to work with my brother, who was just graduated fellowship for a pediatric ophthalmology fellowship, and had a practice in New York City. He's running around like a chicken without a head, too busy, can't manage his practice. I said, I'll take care of the business. You go see the patients. And that was a really, really nice relationship we had. For 9 years, I ran his practice. We grew it to a largest group around the New York City metro area with 4 offices, had a massive problem with paper charts. Patient shows up in one office, charts in the other, charts in the doctor's trunk. Like nobody knew where anything was. We had a mystery pile. A mystery pile is a pile about an inch or two thick of papers like referral forms and test results that come in, and there were no charts. We couldn't find the chart. So there's all this like medical paperwork. We couldn't even find a home for those papers. Back then, this is late 90s, there was really not a lot out there in terms of electronic health records. We hired somebody, a programmer whose last name starts with R. My brother and I, last name starts with S. So we created SRS, and it was a great software. Got rid of all the paper charts, completely changed the practice, started going to conferences and marketing it. And PS, fast forward to 2012, we sold the company to a private equity concern called Thoma Bravo.
Very nice.
And we had about 20,000 users, 5,000 doctors on the platform. So it's kind of like necessity is the mother of invention, right? We had a problem with charts and we solved it with software. One other problem cropped up a couple of years later. My wife and I are traveling, nice hotel in Prague, terrible check-in experience. And I wanted to rate the front desk staff person. His name was Federico, and by name and face, similar to how you would rate your Uber driver, let's say. So I said, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to create a software company that does that. But in the medical space, I have 5 offices, 10 offices, and some far-flung satellite. Is the patient getting the art of the warm welcome? I want to rate that person at the front desk. So that was our very first version, rating people. And then my brother later on said, hey, this is great data. I love the software, but my competitor has more online reviews than me. What could we do? So that's when we pivoted and started focusing on reputation management. So even though our DNA has patient surveys and satisfaction and benchmarking, reputation management has been a hot product in healthcare for a long time. So we lead with that, and we've built an amazing healthcare-focused reputation management platform.
And that's your company, Rater8, correct?
Yes, that's our company. That's my company today. I started it in 2015. I don't code, but the first coders were hired in 16. So we're coming up in 10 years of actually actively working on the product.
Excellent. So tell us more about the company, the service you provide, the tech behind it.
It's all about visibility online. Interestingly, in healthcare, ratings are much higher than any other industry. For example,
I can see that because everyone's always pissed off.
No, no, much higher. So when using a reputation management, the average score for a doctor online is 4.88.
Really?
Yeah,
Out of
and
5, just
out of
to be
5.
clear. Okay.
And if you have a doctor, we have, let's say, statistically significant number of reviews, let's say 100 reviews, and they're 4.6. That's in the bottom percentiles, bottom 10 percentile of all our doctors. Yet a restaurant rated 4.6, I'm going there right away. So the goal of our company is to provide visibility online for all these patient reviews, whether we have our own review listing page, Rater8 does, or it's Google, Healthgrades, Vitals, WebMD, Facebook, RateMDs, these myriad review sites, make sure that the patient's voice is heard. And that was really important years ago. So I just searched for a doctor or a practice or a brand name, and I see good Google listings and Healthgrades and Vitals listings. But now with AI, they're reading AI, like these LLMs like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. They're reading all these reviews from all these sources, and then when you ask, is ABC Orthopedics a good practice, or do they have good reviews? Is this doctor a good doctor? They're taking all this feedback that's published online and summarizing it. So on average, they're taking 4.88 star sentiment reviews and summarizing it for the patient, which is super
Well,
powerful.
let me ask about that. I am totally curious because although I think many people very much like their doctor, but they typically hate the experience it takes to get into them, waiting times, all those other things.
Hmm.
And with that, you're still seeing doctor ratings being that high?
Yeah, so I think you just hit the nail on the head. They love the doctor. They just hate waiting in the waiting room. Um,
The insurance companies and what they put you through, which often doctors get blamed for, good,
correct.
bad, or indifferent.
Correct, but they just love their doctors, they really do, and when it comes to posting reviews, they seem to sometimes complain about that, but usually stick with, "This doctor's taking care of me, and I like this doctor, and I'm gonna give him a five-star rating." We get
Interesting.
big metadata. We get about 1.5% of our online reviews are 1 star. Some practices are below 1%, so 1 in 100. And just organic, like don't do anything with the online reputation, you're going to have 20% 1-star reviews because it's really the upset patients that go out of their way to post a bad
Sure.
review. And if you go to a doctor, you're happy, 5-star happy, you're not going posting a review online. But if someone gave you a text and one click, you could quickly post a review, you'll do it. So the idea is to just get those 5-star happy patients to participate in providing their feedback online.
Awesome. Well, tell us about some current projects your company's working on.
So it's like a little bit of a Manhattan project. It's a AI focused. AI just blows me away. It blows everybody away, I think.
And it's changing daily.
It's changing daily. And Google used to be a search engine. I want to search for articles and links that I could read up on things. Now it's really an answer engine. I expect if I say, what's the current tariff rate on India? They just changed it to like 50%, right? So it used to be there'd be an article and I go to Newsweek and I click or the Wall Street Journal and read the article. Now I expect that answer. I don't want to go to an article. So it's becoming an answer engine. It's the same thing in healthcare. I want answers about my provider and my practice. So it's a sea change in the way patients are searching for and getting data and understanding how good their doctors are regarded in their community.
I like the way you put that, how online search is changing from show me a bunch of resources and articles and data to this to just give me the freaking answer.
Correct.
And that's a good way of describing how things evolved. I like that. Tell us about your software engineering team at your company.
So we have three parts to the team. We have an onshore right here in the U.S. core team of developers. We also have a nearshore, Latin America to keep us to the same time zone. And then to spread out our time zones, we have a Eastern European team as well. We're a C#, .NET, Azure, Angular shop. So we're divided up in 3 areas geographically, and it works out very well for us.
Now I know you come from a investment banking background, a healthcare business background. You are heavily involved in tech, but you are not an engineer. How do you make sure your engineering teams are running smoothly and efficiently?
Just got to find the right person to run the team, right? And like anything else, as a CEO, I'm very good at certain things, and coding is not. So I can't look at someone's code. So and see if it's good or bad or quality, if it's quality or not, or run.
I can't either.
Right.
I'm not an engineer, but throughout my career, I have learned how it's powerful to when you have the vision and you know how to communicate to engineers is a key thing. But with that, you need the right engineering leaders, making sure best practices are followed and good coding standards, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I got lucky. In my first company, SRS, we had an amazing CTO I worked with for over 10 years. And then he came to Rater8 as a CTO and was here for many years. So just lucky that I had someone and knew someone who I trusted, who I knew would, has all those things you're describing, is a great leader, can build and scale teams, doesn't have tolerance for bad code, has a mantra of do things right the first time, don't just slap something in the software. And so it's a little bit of luck having the right person, because we all see software disaster stories where the CTO
Sure.
wasn't fastidious and wasn't focused on quality, and you end up with a platform that crumbles. So and we have a very solid platform that handles explosive growth. As the company's grown, just has been able to handle explosive growth, and it's just as fast today as it was 3 years ago.
Very nice. You know, so you had an existing relationship with a good CTO that you brought over. That's definitely key. And CTOs become a really challenging, if not impossible, job out there. They need to have the technical chops to lead the engineering team, but the business chops to make sure to be able to communicate what's going on the engineering and tech side to non-tech leaders and board members and investors. And they're often the first to be blamed.
Correct. So I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of CTOs, they're geniuses, but they might not have the software chops, but not the people skills.
Right.
And so again, I've been very fortunate to have CTOs who have been great leaders as well as technologists.
Well, give your CTO a shout out by name on the show.
We'll do. Right now, it's Judd Weeks, and the guy I worked with twice before was Yossi Gerritz.
Awesome. Well, great tech leaders deserve it. What are some of the biggest challenges you're facing now?
So, we don't have any technical challenges per se. We've built an amazing AI platform. Challenges is just trying to figure out what's going on with AI, how it's going to play out in the search over the next few years. Like 3 years from now, do it. Record some searches of a few things today. Do the same thing 3 years from now. It's going to be, I'm convinced it's going to be a very, very different experience. You already see like Google has their AI mode, which is that right to the left of, all images, videos, news is AI mode. And those results are spectacular and very different than anything we've seen. And you could kind of see that becoming the standard. So it's just trying to figure out how we amplify the patient's voice, how we get the large language models to read it and use our content that we create. We have our own verified review listings to use those, which so far we've been successful in doing, and how we don't lose that edge. So that's our biggest challenge now.
Gotcha.
And it used to be more features, like what features do we put in our software? Now we're worried about how is search changing, which is fun. It's exciting.
So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I invested a bunch of money, got everything set up, and sat in my office the first day alone and had an oh shit moment. I said, I am phenomenal at sales, one of the best out there, but I had no idea how to make the phone ring. And I didn't even realize at that time in my career the difference between sales and marketing, truly. And so the past 25 years, I've immersed myself in everything marketing. I've started marketing companies because for any business, making sure you're marketed right, you're taking advantage of SEO and other things is key. How do you see the SEO landscape with AI evolving? I think everyone's trying to figure that out right now.
Well, the technical term is GEO, generative engine optimization, rather than SEO. So all the rules, the tags, the keywords, the content, that all changes going forward. So it's just to try to figure out what GEO means and what you need to show or
exactly
expose to the GEO engines.
Whose standards are you basing that on? ChatGPT or any of the 20 other ones?
Right. Well, what we do is we've been focusing on the big ones, Gemini and ChatGPT. There are many other ones, but the same thing with like Google listings versus Bing listings. Like,
right.
From a practice, I want to focus on my Google listings, not my Bing listings. Microsoft, fortunately, this time around has something that, on the search side, there's something that's very compelling. which is, their co-pilot with a ChatGPT relationship. So we focus on those two platforms, and we use Gemini for our own AI engine. We use Gemini in-house.
So talk about how you guys have integrated AI into both your product and operations.
So years ago, we had a product called PSA, Patient Sentiment Analysis. So this was where we would look at all the patient feedback from the surveys, and we'd have somebody review the data and summarize it for our clients. And they love that, right? Wow, you could summarize all this. And we would charge whatever dollars per doctor per month, and then we'd summarize it for them. And then it got kind of out of hand. Like so many people wanted it, right? And it was just a lot of manual work. So we closed that product down. But now with AI, we can literally take 1,000 comments about a doctor and click a button and a summary comes up. And not only does the summary come up, there's an area where if it's a negative sentiment, let's say on check-in staff or something, it'll even give you suggestions on how to improve. So that's just a massive improvement over the way we used to use it. We also have AI that does sentiment scoring. We score from -1 to +1 every single patient comment that we could, whether it's from Google or on our surveys, and that helps us in myriad ways, especially like when you try to produce testimonials. Like you'll get people who have 5-star ratings, but the comment is like, love the doctor, but the staff was rude, but give a 5-star rating. So a lot of people think that's a testimonial, and they'll put it on their website as a testimonial. Well, we make sure the sentiment that we generate, the sentiment score is very high, so they're true testimonials. So we use AI that way. We use AI to respond in a HIPAA-compliant manner to Google reviews. So to date, we have almost 200,000 of those responses, 90% of which are unedited. Some are edited beforehand, but 90% of which are unedited. So we could respond in mass in a thoughtful, HIPAA-compliant manner to reviews. So those are just examples of huge efficiency and time savers where we use AI. Internally, I don't want to, give away our trade secrets. We do use, and when they're in process of deploying agents to help the dev team become much more efficient. We use it internally. Like we could summarize batches of tickets. So you meet with a client, instead of reading through every ticket, you could just summarize that in a summary. So it saves our client success managers time. And, there are other things that we're working on now to help scale up and become more efficient using AI for our internals.
As anyone scaling a business, raising funds is always something. How do you think your earlier career in investment banking helped position you as an entrepreneur and founder?
It certainly helped until my last two companies, until we sold the last company and until we had a major investment in Rater8. By our private equity sponsors. I was the CFO, right? I could handle finances and numbers and spreadsheets and models and all that. So that was a huge help, having that finance background. Also, I'm just very good with numbers. So I'm very ROI focused, always trying to not only calculate like what's the ROI on internal projects. So if we develop this module, right, how much could we sell it for? How much could we increase our price? What's the ROI on that? And also on, we're very ROI focused on talking to clients and saying, look, how many new patients do you need a year, let's say, to pay for the software in terms of a return on investment, right? By having a better online reputation. So I think just having a finance focus is just good for business. And that's why I think CFOs always play an important role in a company, because they're there to, wrap numbers and analysis around any project or plan or anything you do moving forward. You always run it against the numbers to make sure it makes sense. So just being an entrepreneur and a CEO, aside from being a product-focused CEO, understanding the product and the needs of the clients, being able to analyze the business and grow the business efficiently from a accounting and finance side, I think has been very helpful to my career.
I had that brutal awakening in my entrepreneurial journey where I found that although I've always understood numbers well, I didn't know how to really read financial statements. And when I was 30 years old, I started a commitment that I was going to study one public company financials every month, from their annual report to their 10Ks to all of their documents. And that by the end of the month, I had to pitch it like I was pitching for investors. And I hated it. I forced myself to do it. And it took till about month 8. So it all started clicking for me. And I had to really push myself, because the importance of talking with investors, growing your businesses, understanding those things, is really key. And that was kind of the exercise I went through.
And obviously that's been very helpful. When did a fundraise for Rater8 into early 2024. Again, I had no CFO, but being able to put together the story and help, I worked with the bankers, but getting them all that information and again, creating a story, it was very helpful to have that finance background.
Well, and early 2024 was not an easy time to raise money, to say the least.
That's correct. Although if you're a good company, it wasn't like 2022 multiples and valuations. So it was a little more difficult, but we managed to get a deal done. I think if it were today, I think it would be harder for a company to raise money if you're not an AI play.
No doubt. No doubt. That's kind of the prerequisite right now.
That's right.
So, as a guy, Evan, who has started multiple companies, been through the trenches, what's a brutal lesson you wish you would have learned earlier in your career?
Boy, I always tell people, my first company, if you looked at the 3-page shareholder agreement that some lawyer who does wills, small corporate issues, just like a generalist lawyer, it was a little bit laughable and it really caused a lot of problems later on down the road. So I would say when forming a company, don't be penny wise and pound foolish with your lawyer. Get a great corporate lawyer who does just corporate work, and especially forming companies and your startup companies. I think that would go a long way to saving you a lot of headache down the road. That's the one thing I learned. And I did it right the second time and it was much easier.
You almost have to learn through screwing it up.
Yep.
As opposed to others. And especially, when you get to the point of you're bringing in investors, man, that corporate structure, how everything is, how it's documented is everything.
Yep.
That could make or break you.
But also dealing with the shareholders too. How do you who has voting rights and not voting rights and control? I mean, all those governance issues should be well thought out ahead of time.
Well, and if you're just starting out and you see the price tag of the attorneys who are good at that, who have the securities background tied with it, they're really, really expensive. And for a lot of people who haven't experienced that pain, they're like, oh, I'll go to the transactional real estate attorney down the street.
Yep.
He'll do it for cheaper.
Don't do it.
Yes. Yes. Evan, thank you so much for getting uncensored with us today. Very cool. You described the different phases of your career. It sounds like Rater8 is providing a phenomenal service, helping doctors stay top of mind with good rankings. I love it. Before we wrap, any final advice for tech leaders who are out there trying to build, scale, or just survive in these crazy times?
You got to read Fail Hard, Win Big. I just looked on Amazon. It's 5-star rating. So I'm in the ratings business. That's a great endorsement. It's your readers.
Well, that's an awesome plug, and thank you. What other advice would you have for people based on your experience, based on the scars you've
So Rater8 and SRS and my brother's practice, we built businesses on amazing customer service. Like SRS was the class winner for best customer service out of 495 vendors. Rater8 is rated #1 on Capterra out of hundreds of reputation management vendors. If you sort by highest rated, Rater8's #1, 5 stars, 170 something reviews. So my advice is hire what we call ETPs, eager to please. Hire eager to please people who just naturally want to please others, right? And that's a competency. It's hard to find, but if you have a team of those, not only does it help internally because everybody is less politics, everyone wants to help one another, but ultimately you delight your clients. So
I love it. An ETP. I haven't heard that term before. Eager to please. Yeah. I love it.
And it's almost like it's a hard choice, but if you said to somebody, would you want mediocre software with great support or great software with mediocre support? A lot of people would say, I'd take that better support. But if you could have great software with great support, you have a winning formula.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan, so much. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you like the show, please go ahead and hit subscribe. If you didn't like it, well, go tell your competitors about it. They could probably use the help. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time, everyone. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.